I'm going to go ahead and record this too. So what we were just discussing is what happens when we're not allowed to meet, how that works, what the Handbook of Masonic Law says about that, and then Brother Pohl chimed in with the yellow fever actually killing a bunch of people. Now, thank God we haven't gotten that far down this path yet. But the Handbook of Masonic Law does address certain things about how to do that. It's always a good reminder to pull that up, read about what it says about how we meet and when, and what we need to do when we can't meet. The next item is something to read. For just this week, interestingly enough, this came out just today in my email. So if you have a chance to see this in the email, it's very worth it. If you're not signed up for the e-edition, the weekly e-edition, it's e-edition, not edition, the e-edition of Louisiana Freemason. There's 6 ways to engage in Masonry while social distancing. Brother Gar Pickering, I think, is working on several different facets at the Grand Lodge level and was able to put that together. Fantastic, interesting stuff. As a matter of fact, there was an issue on, not an issue, a segment on meditation that was in there. And that section is actually referencing a book written by a Mason that we know and love here in the state of Louisiana. So if you get a chance to read that, 6 ways to engage in Masonry while social distancing. There's some other good things in the article as well. But again, trying to keep the spirit alive from the Grand Lodge level, Brother Gar Pickering definitely hit one out of the park there on that one. The next thing is some online resources. One of the things that I wanted to do, and I'm going to share this later, I'll actually share this recording later, is free online resources for you. I know that people that came to the Warden's Retreat got the link for all the stuff that's in the Warden's Retreat, including all the presentations. If you don't have it, that's the top link there. It's bit.ly/Warden's Retreat 2020. I encourage everybody to go to there, use those resources, take a look at those links. There are several things in there that are from past Warden's Retreats as well, so you'll be able to get all those resources. And again, I don't like charging for that type of information, especially when it benefits the craft. So even if you didn't make the Warden's Retreat, use the link, go get the benefit of the stuff. The second one is the Louisiana Freemason itself. And if you don't have the link to that, if you haven't signed up for the e-edition of the Louisiana Freemason, there's the link to that. It's la-mason.com/Louisiana-Freemason, right? So I don't know how much more Louisiana and Masonry you can put in a URL, but they jammed it all in there. And don't forget it's HTTPS for that. I mean, you can also go to lamason.com and then click the educational stuff and go to the Louisiana Freemason. The third link that I want to give you is freemasonuniversity.com. That is not necessarily university in terms of esoteric work. It's a leadership type academy. freemasonuniversity.com. That link is on our Grand Lodge website. It is not to make you a doctorate of Freemasonry, as much as a lot of people like to think that they have one. They don't. freemasonuniversity.com is to ingrain in you the leadership skills that you have. And the cool thing is it's an online kind of course, and you just watch some videos and answer some questions, and it's a as you go curriculum, which I think is great. The next thing that I have, again, so we have something to research, which is what does the handbook say, something to read, which is the edition of Louisiana Freemason, some online resources, which are these 3 links for you, and then something to learn about. Brother Scott mentioned something to me on the last call that we had, and believe it or not, I've been a resource for several folks in the area, not only for IT, I own an IT business here in Shreveport, but also for emergency preparedness and communications. Brother Scott mentioned ham radio operating and him having his ham license, but not being in the full swing of things. I had another brother reach out to me and said, hey, I bought the radio. I can't get the damn thing to work. All I hear is beeping and chirping, and I don't know what to do. And so I walked him through some preliminary stuff. I was able to do a remote session with him and get him up and running. Interestingly enough, he was able to monitor and listen to repeaters and everything else. So ham radio operating is the next thing for the something to learn about. So if you get a chance, if you're not a ham radio operator, I know that several of us are, and by us I mean us chickens, not only Masons, but us friends and neighbors. Ham radio is a valid resource. It's a vital resource when things go down, especially like phone lines. As many of you know, we've been having problems streaming back and forth. If you ever want to try and see what it's like to have a difficulty streaming, try doing it Sunday morning between the hours of like 10 and noon, right? That's when every church on the planet is trying to stream its services. So ham radio is a very valid tool. And it's grown. It's not just breaker 19 CB radio stuff. Nowadays, ham radio is able to send text messages, GPS coordinates. We can actually send emails on that as we go. We've been able to traffic weather through ham radio reports and operating. There are classes that you can take through the ARRL, the Amateur Radio Relay League, ARRL. You can always start off there to figure out what ham radio is like. I always think of ham radio as the point within the circle. Okay, there's a local section of ham radio, which would be the point, basically hitting repeaters around town and talking to buddies here locally. And then there's the big circular part, right? The outside part of that circle. And the cool thing about us Masons is we get to decide how big that circle is, right? Well, that's the same way with ham radio operating. If you want to just talk locally to guys on repeaters in your area, you can do that. But if you want to talk to Switzerland, Botswana, Niger, wherever you want to talk, even Canada, if you want to, you can talk to the brothers up in Canada. Interestingly enough, there's also a Masonic group that comes on and does a net. And a net is just a group of guys that meet at a particular prescribed time. Sound familiar? That discuss particular topics. Sound familiar? A kind of a group meeting, but it's on the radio. So you can meet with those guys, talk with those guys about Freemasonry. Now, of course, it's not tiled, but at least it's a ham radio net that does Freemasonry. There's one that does broadcast engineering, so I get on that net. And then, of course, there's what I call HF, not what I call HF. HF radio is the big part of ham radio, so you can actually reach out and talk to anybody in the world. There's a technique called EME, which is Earth, Moon, Earth, where you actually aim your antenna at the moon, bounce it off the moon, and it bounces around the backside of the globe to be able to talk to somebody back there. So there are techniques that you can use to talk locally or abroad, if you will, in ham radio, and I think that fits into everything that's going on right now. You can also use mobile apps. You don't have to learn Morse code anymore, by the way. That's not one of the requirements. But if you go to hamexam.org, you can take the tests, the little flashcards there, and then find a testing center near you, wherever that may be, and get your ham radio license. With that, brothers, I've spent a little bit of time on discussing some of these things. Brother McClellan is on. I didn't know that, hey, wheresoever dispersed. So it's good to see your face. But I wanted to let this now be a kind of an open discussion and kind of let you guys say hello to one another while I nurse this beverage.
Brother McClellan, how's things going? Brother Scott, how are you?
I'm doing good, Glenn. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. Sitting out on my porch again. Got a cigar and a cup of coffee. So.
Well, I was excited. I says, I can't remember if it's 7 or 6. So I got on there and I was a few minutes behind, but I'm trying to get a couple other guys to join us in the group because I think this is a good thing going on here.
Speak of the devil, here comes Mark St. John right there.
That's the one I was trying to get on there. Hello, Mark. He may be muted.
He is. That's all right.
Oh. He'll here. You got to unmute, John. I mean, Mark. I don't know. I can't hear you.
There you go.
There you go.
I
All
had
right.
the problem
Hey,
last.
everybody.
How are you, brother?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, with all the ham stuff going on, I think it'd be a good thing to try to get Sean Smith involved in this, because I've been talking to him, and it'd be nice to have a group to do this like this on ham also.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
you know, for the people that want to do it.
Troy, I got a question for you.
Hit me.
I got a restricted radio telephone license from the FCC. Will that work on ham?
No.
No, it will not. Ham radio license band is very specific, and you need to have a ham radio license, an amateur radio license to operate in those bands.
I have an old FCC first class and then general class license, and that's not ham. That was for broadcast.
Yeah, that's the. But Glenn, it's a whopping $15, I think, or $14 for your ham exam, and then it's a 5-year license. So.
Oh, is it 5 years? I thought it was 10 years.
Well, it depends on if you're a 2x3. Depends on what you got. But yes, normally it's a 5-year, and then you re-up. You can get
because mine. The last time I renewed mine, it was for 10 years.
Yeah, but that was before they invented radio, Scott.
Well, I am still a novice, and they don't have the novice class anymore.
Yeah. So it'd be technician class. Yeah.
And I'll, if anybody, encourage anybody to get involved with this, because first and foremost, if you can learn any of the work that we have to learn, then learning the ham stuff is simplistic. A little math in your background helps out, but other than that, it's just basically learning codes and learning what you can and can't do, and the restrictions you have, and what you can transmit and what you can't transmit.
Well, Scott, I'll encourage you to go back through those flashcards on ham exam, and the reason being is because they have digital modes now that they didn't have back when you were taking your test.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they can put in 23 different lines of things. What's that?
You're being photobombed. Hey, Stephen, how are you?
Okay.
Pretty good, Glenn. How you doing, brother?
Doing well. Doing well.
That distancing done right.
How's your state doing, Steve? What are they doing?
Well, the governor, I think he extended the schools being out, like, all but the essential employees are going in for the next, for the foreseeable future, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The school systems, we're out. The last I heard was till April, but I have a feeling that's going to extend past the 1st of April. We haven't, I think we've had one confirmed case, at least here in Orangeburg, where I am. Columbia's got, I don't know the exact case count there, confirmed infections, but we are just making it. The smart people are staying home and trying to avoid, and I'm watching because I'm essential. I'm just, avoiding handshakes and 6 feet of distance between everybody, of course. And fortunately, I don't have an awful lot of interaction apart from having to go to the store and buy necessities and such. But hopefully, I'm more worried about my wife. She's having to travel around and go into people's houses, and she's exposed a lot more than I am. This is kind of awesome, though. How about Louisiana? Is everybody else in Louisiana?
Last we checked.
I think we got one guy on here from Nebraska.
What?
What's up?
What's up, brother Kyle? This is probably the best thing that's come out of the coronavirus so far.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of the videos I've been seeing on Facebook have been pretty good.
Yeah. The memes have been pretty good, though. Yeah.
Well, my wife's also gotten on board with the idea of one of the children being expendable.
Now, wait a minute, brothers. Which one?
Ooh.
Does that
I
vary
like
from
Wes,
moment to
and I
moment?
like my youngest in a zombie apocalypse. He's vicious.
There you go. I don't know if anybody's seen it or not, but somebody showed me a video. They had a guy was sitting there, and somebody off camera was saying, well, you've got, with the virus, you've got two choices. A, you can be quarantined at home with your wife, or B, the guy goes B.
Well, I guess everybody can't be as lucky as me. Everybody goes to the room and just stays there, don't ever come out. But I do have a bunch of teenagers here, so they pretty much keep to themselves.
Yeah.
So on this the website, I want to say something about the Warden's Retreat.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy the Warden Retreat every year, and I've said something to you, Troy. I've said something to Gar about maybe expanding it some. What do y'all's take on that? Because we got the. I mean, I'm a secretary, and I went to the secretary workshop, and and I did get some new information this time, but it was basically the same information as before. Is there any way we might work around and maybe get an advanced class for people that's been there longer and want to expand on some of the Grandview website stuff to get us more acclimated to it?
Scott.
Huh?
You got to pass the basic test first.
Ha ha ha, Chad. Hey, I got a certificate. I'm certified. Certified what? We don't know yet.
Certified all, I guess.
What's the question, Scott? Me and Brother Gar have been talking, and the idea is yes. Hold on just a second. I'll just do it this way. So yes, we are talking about doing a more involved Warden's Retreat. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you noticed, but the branding changed from Warden's Retreat to Leadership Training. So we're focused on the leadership side of things. We were talking about expanding it because literally we maxed out the capacity of the venue last time. So obviously there are other, just in terms of officer leadership training, that's one thing. But in terms of educational leadership from the education committee, that's going to be a whole nother section or module. In terms of meeting on that scale, right now, of course, that's out the window. But yes, and the other thing, the third part about this, yes, we're changing it. Yes, we're being more inclusive. Yes, it's going to be leadership training. I want to include more information for more than just the officers of the lodges. For every Mason, I don't know if you noticed, there's not a lot of information for entered apprentices and fellow crafts in each lodge. So we want to be able to include that kind of package or packet ready to go for lodges to use if they want to, instead of jackbooting it in and saying this is mandatory. And then the last thing is an online resource for all of these things. So that's yes. The short answer is yes. We are planning on expanding.
Well, that sounds good to me. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm lazy. I know they've got help things on the Grandview, but I'm too lazy to get on there and play with it. I'd rather somebody show me. I'm a show me type person. I'm a hands-on type person, basically. If somebody's sitting there showing me what I need to do, then it makes it better for me to learn. That's in my point of view. But I do know Grandview has some help sites when you ask it, how do you do this? I guess I'm just too lazy to go look.
Well, and that's the other thing is we want to start being able to send something out. I don't know if you remember them sending out something monthly where it was a Masonic quiz or something, right?
Right. I remember that.
That was the most minuscule thing lodges would do for the bare minimum for education. But at least it was the roux of the education gumbo in the lodge. Ideally, it should have been a conversation starter, and so thank goodness for W.A. Morris for sending those out every month in the lodge communication. I'm going to try and start something similar, but more open-ended instead of a Q&A. I don't want it to be multiple choice or Q&A. I want it to be a conversation starter. Anybody who's ever come to any of the educational materials that we have that I've presented at, it's normally a forum, kind of like this, where I throw something out there and I want feedback. And the reason being is because somebody in your lodge may say something that's not necessarily on topic or a particular Q&A answer, but it lights the fire under a totally different topic for everybody to think about throughout the rest of the week. You know.
Well, I honestly enjoyed the question and answer things we got, because it did get some members involved, but you know, on a personal level, for about 10 years, nobody did anything. That was the gist of the education. Nobody researched it. Nobody looked. Nobody knew the knowledge because they didn't take the time to study it. So would I like to see something like that back? Yes. Matter of fact, I was in my shed and I've got a bunch of them from the past, and I was actually looking at it here a couple of weeks ago, thinking, I wonder why they quit doing these. Now I believe there's enough people that are excited about learning that they may actually be a good thing for the lodges again.
Well, and that was one of the issues with each lodge should have its own educational chairman. It should, right? And so instead of tying the hands of those educational chairmen and saying, this is what you'll talk about at this particular lodge meeting, I wanted them to formulate their own plans. And if you really look at how the Achievement Award is structured, you can see where it's like, hey, who's your educational chairman? Number one, list him and list who's on the committee. Number two, it also lines out, hey, here are the 12 meeting months that you're going to have. You're going to have at least 2 meetings that month for some lodges. So here's some other guidelines of the meeting topics that you'll need to discuss. So I don't believe I believe in the hand-holding approach, not the hands-on forcing approach. And so I really don't want to say, here's the topic, here's what you're discussing. I do believe in bare minimums, but ideally, you know, I want them to rise to the occasion, right?
Well, I understand that.
So with the educational chairman thing being said, I think that having one of the officers, whether it be one of the elected officers or appointed officers, whose ever job it is, they should take that as their goal to do education, not necessarily have an extra educational chairman. Actually have the officers do their original intended jobs.
Okay, so pop quiz, Kyle. Which officer's job is that?
That would be the master of ceremonies. No, marshal.
Think of your opening and closing.
Oh, okay, so well,
Or wholesome.
what cause the same to be done? I understand that, but there has to be someone who already takes that role, not necessarily someone that the worshipful master has to appoint to do that.
Well, and the reason that I wanted a chairman or a committee person is because I wanted the officers of the lodge, namely the master, to give me the name of the guy who's in charge of education. I don't care if it's actually an officer or not. I just wanted the name and contact information and email of who it is that's in charge of executing education in your lodge.
Right.
You know, it's the responsibility of the master, because he's to give good and wholesome instruction or cause the same to be done. You know, but we appoint someone and you appoint a committee so that they can get together and determine, what subjects they want to cover. And then that way, if one of those people is not at a meeting, you've still got somebody that can cover that education topic.
But here's another thing too, Kyle. What I didn't want to see is somebody who's bad at it be stuck in a job, right? And go ahead.
Well, I mean, the way that we should fix that is to appoint good officers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if you don't have good officers?
Uh-oh. Brother Cole has written.
Have we ever seen that?
Isn't that Mason?
No, never.
Shouldn't we strive for being better?
I've seen it both ways. I've seen a lodge that has an education chairman, sets up a committee, and they split up the work. And that's a good thing because it's not all on one person, but not every lodge does that. Sometimes in those cases, you have to have a person who's just interested in that anyway and is going to do it on his own. Otherwise, it's not going to be done.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I mean, I couldn't tell you who our lodge education chairman is.
Not this year. No.
Yeah. So having someone who is bad at it or having someone who is non-existent, I'd rather take the person who's bad at it.
Right, right. Well, and a great example, what I was trying not to do is pigeonhole the master to being the guy, right? And a great example of that in my dealings with trying to present information, both academically and in Freemasonry and both academic Freemasonry. There are guys who are brilliant. They're brilliant. They write well. They write wonderful papers. Some of them are excellent authors, but they're boring as shit when it comes to law, right? And it's nothing personal. It's just that they don't have any charisma. And inversely, I've seen guys that will stand up and talk for an hour and not do a thing. You know? So there are guys who got it and there are guys who don't. What I really love to see is guys who are on fire for it, but aren't good at presenting, working their magic over and over again and honing that craft to become good, right? If you remember the officerships of the lodge, they're the first couple of roles we have climbing the ladder, so to speak, they're not speaking roles. You don't say anything. You just do your job. And then gradually you get more and more until, senior deacon, good gosh, right? It's the most impactful officer in a lodge next to a master, I would think, in terms of candidates and going through the degrees. So all that to say, finding guys that maybe, I didn't want to say the worshipful master's in charge of this because maybe the worshipful master is not a good education guy. Maybe he's a great master. Maybe he's great, at certain things, but maybe the new fellowcraft kid is going to be a great, education guy. Maybe the newly raised person 2 years in is a new education guy, or maybe one of your past masters is a great education guy. So I wanted to open it up to let the master choose whoever he wills, because again, it's his prerogative to pick whoever that is. But I wanted to be able to have some kind of checkbox to say, yeah, they got one.
So going back to, I said the master of ceremonies. Is it not the master of ceremonies' duty to ensure that ceremony is, or that ritual is done correctly?
Well, again, is education ritual?
It can be.
Right.
So add another job to it. And
yeah. So here's another great question for you. Can you have education in a lodge at refreshment?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So you can actually have profanes inside your lodge room giving you education.
Right.
So who's in charge of those?
So that's what I'm getting at is, I've heard on multiple occasions people going into the master of ceremonies position and going, okay, well, here I am for a year. All I get to do is help out in a degree in a little bit, and that's it. But that's not their job.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as stewards thinking that their only job is to hold rods. If the lodge officers had more determined duties that were communicated to them, and that slack would be picked up and we wouldn't have to look around for someone. That's what I'm getting at with the master of ceremonies. If you can give him that duty, whether it doesn't matter who it is. That person that's appointed to master of ceremonies, your job is to ensure rituals done correctly and to oversee education. Period. Do you accept?
Yeah. Well, and Brother Kyle, I love the way you think. I really do. And the only real time officers are getting told what their responsibilities are is at installation, right? In other jurisdictions, and some of the brethren can speak for me on this. For instance, I was reading about a jurisdiction where they take their chairs, and then when they're elected to their new office, for opening they take their normal chairs, and at closing they're in their new ones. So they better know the position they're moving into because they're fixing to close. Right? And we should think of that forethought in the way that we conduct business. Right? It's not about the meeting. It's not about the opening. It's about where you get to between the opening and the closing that makes you amazing. Right?
That's good stuff.
So I'm always impressed by brothers who think ahead and say, it's not what I'm learning. It's not what I'm doing. The guy that's coming after me. Right? So again, if the master of ceremonies is your cat in your lodge, cheers to that. Brother McClellan, you've changed continents on us.
I like to think he's coming back into Earth.
Right?
Yes. Coming down.
Oh no, I wouldn't go out there. It's even worse out there.
Which coast is worse?
The Gulf. Depends on if you're in the northern or southern part of it, I guess.
Hey, Brother Glenn.
Close the four corners.
I've got a small reserve stash here.
What stash you talking about?
A reserve.
Yes, of course. That was your last stogie, so I tend to stockpile those.
Yeah, no, it was planning on my part. I had intended to go down and buy another box of cigars, but I just never got around to it before all this started.
Brother Paul, I was noticing the streets are relatively are sparse down in your neck of the woods, but they're also trying to pin the blame on Mardi Gras.
Probably so. Probably true. I mean,
probably very true.
There's very little social distancing.
I haven't been to Mardi Gras since I was a kid, though. I can't stand it anymore. I don't like people up in my face. So.
The last time I went to Mardi Gras 4 years ago, I took some friends who had never been, and they were just wide-eyed the whole time.
Yeah.
We went down there the weekend after, and my kids are dying to go on Bourbon Street, and I'm pretty sure I'm a bad parent now because we did that.
Brother Paul, did you hear the rumor that all of this, including COVID-19, is hitting New Orleans because of the body they didn't bury for the Hard Rock?
Well, the Saints never won a football championship for so long because they built the Superdome on an old Indian burial ground.
Yeah.
Does it help you win? Shouldn't it help you win if you're? I don't know.
If they wanted it, I don't know.
Whatever they do, they need to put the gree on the referee. So
social distancing is, the Dallas Cowboys from a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Anyway. Brothers, since I have you on here, what do you think about having this every Friday at this time? Is this a good time for you guys?
It's good for me.
Let me take my schedule.
Go ahead.
Yeah, me too.
I was thinking about trying to do bi-weekly, but I think if we do it every week, I don't think that's too much.
Do you guys want to rotate and do an educational topic?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and the cool thing is in this all, like I said, I posted these in 3 places. One on Joppa, of course, in the First Masonic District, but also on the Scottish Rite, and then the other Louisiana Educational Facebook groups. So if anybody wants to join in on the Facebook groups and say, hey, how about this for a topic? By all means, I was just trying to get some kind of checkbox going for some kind of content instead of just having, again, I didn't know if it was going to be 5 guys or 500. I didn't know how many of you guys were going to join us.
Well, I'm more than happy to volunteer and take the reins and pick the next topic and do the educational presentation. Hold it to about, say, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's fine. Texas just pulled this off, by the way, and had more than 200 members sign in for that. Brother Paul, did you get a chance to attend that?
No. What, online?
Yeah, it was an educational Zoom meeting, and they had
no, I was not. I didn't know about that.
A few hundred plus members. It was a beautiful thing. And of course, it's them, how do you say, grappling in the dark to be able to try and meet again, right?
Well, the first time I'd used Zoom, what you're using here, I was invited to give a talk at the Grand Lodge of Kansas, and they had it for their research lodge, and I said, well, this works fine. That's why when I saw it with you, I said, well, maybe I'll just go sit in and learn some stuff. So
now speaking of your education, Brother Paul, let me get this right. You Zoom meetinged your presentation to Kansas, but you went in person to Alaska.
I never said I was smart.
Your point?
I left 70 degrees. I left New Orleans where it was 70 degrees, and I got in Alaska, and it was minus 20. And, I had my sister wanted me to go see something, one of the Aurora Borealis. I said, I'm not leaving this hotel. I wasn't gonna.
Oh, you were there, springtime in Alaska, it's 40 below.
They would not. I mean, it was wonderful. They do great masonry, but that's too cold for me. I can't deal with that.
Yeah, all 5 of them.
5 years. Yeah.
You can't tile the lodge. The doors suck.
But it's always a dry cold.
Brother Chad put a chat up there, something about we could put this on other sites, including the LA Brethren site.
Yeah, we can share this link. Right? Hey, Chad, you still there?
How do you feel about maybe doing a Scottish Rite thing similar?
Yeah, sure. I don't care. I mean, whatever it takes. I think, and just so you guys know, I texted our Grand Master and offered for him to, hey, Brother Morris. I texted our Grand Master and said, hey, look, if you need help Zooming or whatever you need to do, let me know. Of course, he has those resources down at the Grand with Chad and others. But his response was, no, I don't need help Zooming. But he's afraid that if we don't have the rhythm or the habit of meeting, what will it be like once we're able to? Right?
Yes.
Are we going to lose that momentum of meeting? And my response to him was, well, it depends on how we treat each other during these times.
Right.
So with that being said, is there a way to have a tiled Zoom lodge?
No.
Thank you, Brother Paul. Short answer.
Thank you.
I've seen people do that. I've seen online forums, and they've been cracked. Anything that's internet is,
right.
But in my opinion.
Right. Now, Brother Paul, how do you compare and contrast that with the virtual lodge that they have in Canada?
I don't know what it is. If it's online, it's not tiled.
That's right. It's a teleconference lodge. It's very weird. And again, if you got the E version of Louisiana Freemason, they talk about one of those groups, the Masonic Roundtable, and those guys have a round table, but it's not a lodge. Totally different than actually a lodge meeting.
Yeah. I think if lodge wanted to get together with something like this, as long as they don't do ritual and they just visit, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but once you get into ritual, it's either tiled or it's not tiled, and if it's online somewhere, it's not tiled.
Never going to be tiled. Right?
So you have lodge, you just don't open or close.
You just get together.
And is it lodge?
Visit.
Fair enough.
You're just at refreshment.
Arose by any other name, brothers.
I'll be ready.
My house is filled with cows and eavesdroppers.
Yeah. Lodge properly encrypted.
Yeah, Indiana outlawed electronic meetings and suspended meetings. So that's from Brother Chad Kaling. So anyway, short answer is no, we can't actually do the lodge this way. But yes, in terms of who wants to, so we want to do this with the Scottish Rite. As a matter of fact, we have our extinguisher and lighting candles coming up. And I'm not sure exactly how we're going to accomplish that. I'm going to propose that we use Zoom and get our parts that way. And if I get Ballard, Lease, California Cool Breeze Smith to Zoom, $7 a piece.
Good luck on that.
Yeah.
But so I don't know how we're going to perform that. But at the same time, yes, I'm down. I think I think we as the state are a little behind the ball in terms of digitally during thinking ahead. Whatever your ideas are.
Well, I'm personally down for a Scottish Rite thing.
Yeah.
I think it'd be nice. We continue with this forum and then also do a Scottish Rite forum. I think that would be great.
Yeah, if we could maybe like dig into a certain degree every meeting.
We got to watch that.
Again, you got to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how about just going over like what's already in the books? So that's not. That's not privileged information, is it?
Are we talking about the degrees? Or
Well,
yeah.
I mean, anybody can get this on Amazon.
We're gonna put stuff on the grill.
Yeah, bridge to light. Brother Paul, will you speak to that for a second? How do you feel about that? I know you have the Scottish.
I can hardly hear.
Just trying
I'm
to.
talking about stuff that that any Yahoo can find in a bookstore. Would that be? I mean, like this or the
anything philosophical or anything that you talk about the degrees, as long as you don't talk of the small element of the ritual aspects.
Right.
But you talk about the philosophy of the degrees. You can talk about what the degree. You can talk about the history of the degrees. You can talk about the history. I'm getting ready to come out with something that's going to be probably a shakeup on the Scottish Rite. It's going into a lot of the early history of Louisiana Scottish Rite, and it's so there's a lot that you can really talk about. And especially in forums, you could talk about, so much, and any book that I've seen people do meetings, public meetings, by getting a book and talk about the book. So if you're talking about a Scottish Rite book, you could talk about that Scottish Rite book and anything that's in it, and as long as it's not ritual.
For instance, like that thing that you did at the Scottish Rite, like the secret degree. Could we do something similar to that?
A secret degree.
He talked about a degree, but didn't tell us what the name was, and then we had to figure out what degree he was referring to.
Give you.
It's like 20 questions.
Yeah, I'll give you my experience with that. If you put somebody on a spot and you say, let me ask you a question, what is this? And you put them on the spot and you make them answer a question, a lot of times they'll feel bad if they can't answer it. And it'll cause, they may not want to come back, in other words.
Right.
So it's better if you ask a question, you say, what does this mean? It means this. And you know, rather than actually put somebody on a spot, because that
question and then answering it for them.
Right. And save their pride.
Right.
I'd be more than happy to, I would say lead at least one, and I've gotten pretty adept at leading these virtual classrooms the last couple of weeks. So what I find best is just to pose a question for anybody to answer. Just put it up there and talk about it if nobody wants to answer. But yak about something, put a question up, everybody discusses it.
You all right, Glenn?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
Focused on Glenn's boogie right now.
I'm just laughing at Chuck down there.
Pretty sure you can
almost makes me want to pick my nose or something.
Yeah.
Wasn't a very flattering angle, I'll give you that.
Well, no. But I was just leaned back in my lounge chair trying to get this
Hey, man, smoke a cigar, sheesh.
I'm just glad everybody on this call is wearing pants.
Are you sure of that?
Are you sure of that?
Sure?
I'm barely
Just because
wearing
I'm
a shirt.
outside doesn't mean anything.
That's right.
Hey, Brother McClung,
Yeah, that's
what are you wearing?
Huh? Khakis.
I always keep my airline polo in my office, just to put it on for when I'm hosting things. Like it's just sitting here.
Okay, brothers, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for tonight. I appreciate everybody joining the call. The last thing that I have on the docket is a call to action for you. If you know of a brother that is in need, or an older brother older than 60 or 70 that you know used to get rides coming to lodge, or was a little bit frail going up the steps of your lodge, and you haven't called to check on them, please do. Please pick one guy out. And to give credit where credit's due, some of my officers from JAPA 362 said, hey, let's get together, let's do some food collection and pass it out to some of the older members. But unfortunately, I think that one-to-many paradigm is not the best idea right now. What I think is best is one person reaching out to one other person, checking on them and seeing how they're doing. My sister is an ER nurse at LSU, at Oshner's. There was a lady that was sent home. She was told to self-quarantine. Nobody checked on her. 3 days later. Okay, true story, really happened. So in this time, all I can do is check on them. I realized that we had a group text of all the young guys in our lodge, and you know, text Glenn too. But instead of just having the young guys group checking on checking the older guys, and a great example is they probably don't know how to Zoom, right? So check on them, call them, text them, whatever you need to do, and the widows, of course, of your lodge. It's this time that I think that people will remember how we behave. So if you get a chance, find one brother to check on him, you know, just every once in a while, just to make sure they're doing okay. With that, does anybody have anything to bring forward?
Well done. You've done great.
Good.
All right, brothers, you know the rules. Of course, take a second just for a moment here for us all to have a moment of silence and silently pray. Bow your head. Amen.
Amen.
Social distancing rules. You know the rules of our lodge. You know the rules of our grand lodge and what they've stated and stipulated. Follow those rules to the best of your abilities. Stay healthy, stay well, and govern yourselves accordingly. Until next time.
Take care.